ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues. Thank you again, Bobby, for that warm introduction. A little embarrassed by all those kind words that you just mentioned. My name's Eric, and I was asked to try to give us a little bit of a talk to help us kind of set the stage for these next couple of days of presentations, conversations, and possible research collaborations moving forward. So what I'm going to try to do is give us a framework, a little bit of understanding, look a little bit into the future of our collective efforts, where they might be going, and how we might better get together and collaborate with our efforts in this growing community that we've created here with the World Learning Labs Symposium. Right, so I have a lot of roles that might come up today, and I will go pretty quickly, but like any good online or learning technologist, everything can be found online later, so I will give you all the links and references later on. So if I skip something or I go over something a little quickly, you'll be able to review those materials a little bit later. All these roles up here above have different contexts for what I might talk about today, but probably the most important is co-founding this Together conference that we've created starting last year with Professor Figueroa. This particular community of people and the growing bond, I must say, between a lot of our researchers and the excitement and the enthusiasm amongst the people that are joining this community is really heartwarming, and it's growing at a good pace, and I'm really happy to see all of the excitement and enthusiasm that we're gaining with momentum in this initiative. A little bit announcement later about this particular initiative and what we might be moving forward. All right, so there's just a lot of terminology been moving around recently. So we have our established terms in the research, our reality, spectrum virtuality continuum. Milgram's work in the mid-90s kind of held us to an account, a way to kind of frame these technologies and categorize them and put them in different ways. But commercial efforts and marketing schemes start to kind of cloud this kind of terminology, and so the greater public is starting to be a little bit confused, a little bit unwary about where these technologies lay. Most importantly, with the release of Apple's Vision Pro that came out recently, and they are unwilling to say the word VR or XR because of they don't want to be in the same camp. They want to be seen as doing something new. They're calling it spatial computing. And so it's a little bit disingenuous to say one word, but you could say it's just their way of rebranding. It's not necessarily a new term. This term has been in published academia for a very long time, but it's just very unclear as to what exactly it is as far as specific technology. So we have our family of technologies, AR, MR, VR. XR, we've traditionally kind of said is extended reality that kind of houses all of these things. We can also think of spatial computing as kind of the same thing, quasi, everything and anything as far as those technologies go. But so now if you come up to someone on the street and ask them or tell them I'm a researcher in XR, you might need to rephrase to spatial computing depending on what ecosystem they're in. So we have all these things moving forward. The terminology is changing. The zeitgeist, the public awareness is growing very rapidly. Meta changing from Facebook, going hard in on the metaverse, also brought a lot of attention to us last year. A lot of that oxygen was sucked out of the room by ChatGPT and OpenAI this year. But those things are starting to come together in a way that are synergizing. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about today about how these two worlds, how these two things are starting to synergize in ways that will kind of push each other forward and accelerate this even faster moving towards the future. Right, so I won't talk about this in depth. I want to talk about some other things, but we all know that there's a lot of benefits in immersive learning. The empathy machine, things to help us with special education, the ability to curate and take in data like never before. All these things are great, but all these great things come at costs. And we have some concerns also as researchers and educators putting these things to use in the field. Privacy with data collection, biometrics. We can identify or de-anonymize users in VR faster than ever before, kind of diagnose things like learning disabilities and things like that. Psychological effects. We have all these things that happen to us in the mobile era with social media, things like compulsion loops and checking our social media accounts, and FOMO, missing out, things like image dysmorphia with Instagram filters and things like that. All those things have a chance to be exacerbated with these technologies, and we need to be aware and careful of them moving towards the future. But one not talked about a lot, and one that I think I identified pretty early, is this idea of automation. And AI's kind of connection to these technologies starts to show this particular problem or opportunity, depending on how you look at it, in a different context. So as this technology can take in more data more than ever, AI can use that data in new ways, synthesize it, and can automate learning and teaching procedures even faster than before. So I'd like to talk about that in particular. Just to quickly mention that at my day job at the Kyoto University of Foreign Studies, we have a new initiative started a couple years ago where we redesigned our curriculum, and we have a whole new set of coursework, and they all implement XR technologies in some fashion or another. So all the things that you see before there, either I teached or I helped design coursework at our university that we have either deployed or deploying this year using this technology. And these might come up today in our conversations as well. If at any time anybody has a question or wants to interrupt me, please, you can do so. These also might come up in our conversation today. Each of these things, XR, AR, AI, MR, I have one particular kind of highlighted project that I'd like to kind of use to exemplify the educational implications of these technologies. So these might come up today as well. In particular, the talk about augmented reality and the thing called Reality Labo. And so it's always been my contention that these new technologies that are emerging, edge computing, cloud computing, IoT, 3D printing, and of course AI, immersive technologies, in particular augmented reality, is going to be our preferred mode of interaction with these new technologies moving towards the future. So the way we're going to integrate what we're doing and deploying artificial intelligence is through the lens of computer vision algorithms or all the other technologies that are connected to augmented reality. So if we're going to be doing things in the future, training new models and such, we're going to be doing it through the lens of immersive technologies. So our real life and our digital contents are mixed with immersive technologies, but particularly with artificial intelligence, and this new synergy between these two technologies is going to be accelerating. And again, blurring the lines between our real reality and our digital realities. So Reality Labo is one example of this at our students at the Kyoto University of Foreign Studies. This is an application I developed roughly starting about 10 years ago. And I use a prompt to help us think about these technologies, and getting students to actually use augmented reality and start designing it, seeing the affordances it gives, is really a powerful tool. So this is a rapid prototyping tool, and I ask students, especially those in our tourism department, I asked them what it would mean to digitally customize real-world experiences for everyone. So 2 people go to Kinkakuji, which is a famous temple in Kyoto. One person loves architecture, the other person's interested in spirituality. They're experiencing walking together in real life, but their realities are quite vastly different. And what does that mean for our communication, our togetherness, how we design tours moving towards the future, how we communicate as far as being together but different, both mentally and physically. There's a lot of questions around that, and being able to understand the answers to those questions will help, I think, students gain the skills and understandings that will help them navigate future careers. So here's an example of what that app might look like. So you're just taking a set of playing cards and connecting digital contents, throwing videos on walls, or putting 3D models in hallways, or adding audio when you enter a room, things like that. Anything digital, connect them to anything real, think like a Pokemon Go. And students are creating gamified tours, they're creating experiential open campuses, and all fun things like that. But this in particular, because this app is taking in a lot of data, through researching through this app, we're able to use the GPS sensors on phones, the camera data that's being taken in by each phone, the amount of data that's been sucked in through this use of this technology. I can see that this is going to start informing the use and training of new, for example, large language models or other new computer vision algorithms and things moving towards the future. So through the use of this initiative, we can already kind of see how this synergy is going to happen between artificial intelligence and augmented reality. Here's an example just last week, NVIDIA, which is at the forefront of the newer artificial intelligence chips, their stock is going through the roof. They're having a heyday as far as being able to deploy and host server farms for artificial intelligence. We are training the new generation of robotics with the use of augmented reality. So what we're doing is we're putting a VR headset on people, asking them to do normal tasks like folding laundry or making a cup of coffee or working in a factory. We're taking in all that biometric data of their movements, how they interact with other people and the objects. We're feeding that into an artificial intelligence model. We could use some motion capture, which is also a kind of augmented reality, and capture body movements from a camera as well. We put that into a digital twin and ask the model to run the simulation 100 million times, and then we put that new model into a real robot, and then it can navigate the world that looks much more, if you watch these new robots move, they look much more natural than these Boston Dynamics robots that just were around like just a few years ago. So you can see this is accelerating very quickly with this synergy between these two technologies, right? We're using virtual reality to springboard, to take in more information, to take in more data, and then feeding that into artificial intelligence and doing amazing, awesome things that are moving quicker and quicker all the time. So exponential increase in technology. So as humans, we think about the kind of linear progression of technology, but really, I feel this more and more all the time. I'm having a harder time just keeping up with the research that's coming around the corner, that's coming out around these technologies. And so it's starting to grow at a pace I feel like it's getting quicker all the time. I feel like I'm on this curve. I don't know if you do too. This is one other talk, Ray Kurzweil, that came up with this idea of the singularity where humans and technology will merge. I think he set a date, 2039 or 2045 or something like that, where humans will allow them consciousness to be either put into computers and we can live forever, or the point where artificial intelligence grows so fast that it grows beyond the capacity for humans to control it, and it just starts growing infinitely. So he is on a wave of these predictions, and so he's been charting them since way back, and it's been on that pace. We've been on this exponential curve, and he's charted it very well, and he's been making these predictions. So when he says that artificial intelligence will be smarter than humans by, I think it was 2039 or something like that, we can take his track record to heart and think it, or we should act on it as if that were the case. Right, so what I want to spend a little bit of time on is to help us kind of frame this. What does this mean for us as educators, as students, as teachers moving towards the future? And I don't have the answers, of course. So to help us think about it, I've come up with 3 stories, 3 little tidbits. As a futurist or as a strategist, insight strategist, you often hear about them thinking about signals or a term like that. So signals is something, as a news story, a bit of data that's happening right now in the world, and you take that and use that to help your future projections of what things might be. So these are 3 kind of little quick stories, little tidbits to help us kind of think about where we're moving towards the future and try to help us, put our efforts in the right place or collaborate in the right way. Well, the first one is actually a paper I published called the Budding Botanist Paradox a couple of years ago. And this is a story about Air France Flight 449. I think this was in the summer of June 2009. Air France flight took off from Rio de Janeiro for Paris and was lost in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And after an extensive investigation, they found that the autopilot was not working correctly. The instruments on the flight deck were showing wrong information, and the pilots were not able to manually correct in time, and the plane crashed in the middle of the ocean, and we lost 200 and some passengers and all the crew members. And after this investigation, the Federal Aviation Association put out a mandate for more manual flight testing and more manual flight control for their pilots, which is a contradiction because we know that the autopilot is more safe, it has less accidents, humans are less prone, we're humans, we make mistakes, but in the event that these systems fail, we need to have the sufficient know-how in place or the ability to get themselves out of it. So in the past, a pilot would be able to just feel the airspeed with their kind of intuition because they have that reflex knowledge, that body motion knowledge, like shooting a free throw 1,000 times. You just have that instinct, right? You know you're moving at a certain speed, you need to move your rudders left or right. We have lost that in our pilots through automation, through artificial intelligence. And so, thinking about that in educational context, I put this as a person learning botany or studying out in nature, trying to learn something. So we take this idea of the paradox of automation, which states that the more that we automate things, more that we rely on artificial intelligence and other automated systems, the less the number of people that are able to help us when those systems fail. So if you go to the airport now, we have all these automated passports and immigration control systems. A lot of people can go through. Those things fail. We only have a handful of people at the airport that are able to, do those things manually, right? So as we move towards the future, things get automated more, which in a lot of ways is a good thing. It helps us be more efficient and helps humans concentrate on the things we need to concentrate to, but we lose some things in the meantime as well. So you put that in the context of somebody learning botany. In the past, you go out into a mountainous area, you're trying to study the effects of climate change on the particular biome that you're looking at, and you, in the past, would think about things like, where am I? What's the weather been like recently? Has there been a lot of migration of animals coming forth? And you look at a flower, and because you have all this kind of practiced knowledge out in the field, you can kind of come down on what species of flower might be that's in front of you, or if it's different, or if it's blooming in the correct area. But what we've done with artificial intelligence and augmented reality is we've taken a collection of all these things, put it through something like a large language model. We can point our camera at something, our camera knows where we are in the GPS, it has a collection of thousands and thousands of photos that other people have uploaded, and those have geolocation markers and time markers on them as well, compares them for us, and gives us the species of flower that we're looking at. So we get that answer. You Google the real world. And so Basically, when Google came out, being able to Google something, what did that mean for your process of inquiry as a learner, as a student, right? That's changed dramatically. And we gain some things from this, and we lose some things from this as well. And that all comes down to the paradox of automation, right? Those automated systems fail. What are we missing? What kind of skills, what do we need to kind of help us through those situations? And just to kind of clarify that, we're gathering more data and we're getting less back from these systems as well. So business models are leveraging the data that's being collected, and we're getting less information back from these automated systems as well. All right, second story. Now we're going to move towards the teaching aspect of things. That was the learning aspect. The teaching aspect of things. A student at Concordia University at the height of the pandemic is taking an art history class. Very interested. They're halfway through the semester, and they're taking online lectures. And halfway through the semester, the student has a particular question, goes to reach out to their professor, Googles their professor's name, and the first thing that comes up is that teacher's memoriam. So this teacher had passed away 2-3 years prior. The student was unaware of it and was shocked. And so what was happening here is these automated systems kept going. The learning course was still in the system at their university. The student was still taking that. And so this automated system allowed this teacher to continue past their death, which is a good thing. But on the other side, what are the questions that are around this as far as individual rights, the ability to harness learning information moving forward into the future, and collecting data for the purposes of teaching and learning. So there's a little bit of a give and take with that as well, I think. So to kind of put that in better terms, when we're thinking about switching things online, this happened at our university. It happened at a couple of universities in Singapore where I did some consulting work. The faculty there, when talking about moving their courses online, one of the big things is that they're thinking that they're automating away their own jobs, and in some ways they are. And now we're talking about artificial intelligence, and that is happening for us, whether we put our courses online or not. So, we're in this loop now. So when we're talking about the idea, will we lose jobs because of AI? Maybe, maybe not, but you will lose your job if you refuse to use AI with the same person using AI. Because our efficiency, our ability to do things is increased rapidly, because we're using AI, we are compelled to use it as educators to stay competitive, to keep innovating, to move forward, to grow. But as we are compelled to use it, we feed these data into the systems, and those systems get automated, and therefore new automated systems get created. We have a new version of this Concordia University just around the corner, as far as Harvard University is already putting large language models into their coursework, online coursework, that's kind of fed by the lectures and videos that that teacher has created. So we're coming into this loop. And again, this is accelerating, moving faster and faster. This loop just keeps feedbacking in on itself. And so what we do about this, we have to, in my opinion, we have to lean into it, but we have to lean into it in a responsible, ethical way. My daughter's here with me. I'm not supposed to mention her, but this is the third story. So we talked about the learner, we talked about the teacher. Now let's talk about the institutions and the systems with a little anecdote, right? So how we learn, how we teach, and how we manage that process, right? So this is a set of Legos my daughter built, and we had a chat like, wouldn't it be cool to go inside Legos? And she just said, yeah, let's do it. And she made a digital twin in Minecraft, and we played inside of it. So young students, young people are already thinking about how they're leveraging this technology, and they think about it in vastly different ways, and they're implementing it in ways that might not be aware of this to us older folks, right? I often put this in the form of how we integrate with technology, how we use technology. If you're my age or a little bit younger, you might have seen the thing where your young son or daughter goes up to the TV and tries to swipe it, tries to swipe the TV. That is a person that's in the mobile era touching a piece of technology from the appointment television era, right? So now we take that step to the next generation. My daughter's daughter might go up to the door and swipe it, right? It's just a piece of something. It's connected somehow with artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and the way that you are connected through these things really matters. So creating digital twins, being able to explore the world in new ways, it's just the way young people are thinking. They're doing things differently. They're learning just in time. How did she learn how to do this? She went by herself onto YouTube, found a tutorial, learned by herself, and constructed it all on her own. She didn't need a course. She didn't need any formalized training or learning to go through this process, right? And so kind of linking that forward to institutions, a language university like we're here at today, and the one I'm from in Kyoto, a lot of times you don't really realize that you may be, as far as competing for recruitment and students, competing with other universities, you're also competing with Duolingo or other disruptive technologies that are coming around the corner. And so you kind of have to think about, as we automate these processes, not only are we going to be thinking about other institutions and their offerings and their courses, but new ways and new paradigms of which these things are put forward. And the business models and the institutional, how we adapt to these models is growing very differently. Bobby's efforts at UPOU is very important for us as educators because these business models around the technologies of immersive learning rely heavily on collecting information and using that data, leveraging that data in ways to monetize it or to use it in other ways. Meta, perhaps with advertising or other kind of think something like a Turnitin, which is a plagiarism checker, which is now using AI. You're feeding essays, they're taking that data, feeding it into their learning language models and growing it better, and so it grows better over time. So the business models are changing. And so we need to lean in, I hope, as our community goes into things like OpenXR, things like open models, things like open standards, that will allow us as educators, as teachers, as students, to use things a little more equitable, a little easier, and a little more cross-platform, which is hard to do because all these systems need to take in more data. I've run into these problems all the time trying to develop my own systems like I showed you before. This is not an easy thing to navigate. All right, so we got the three stories, the budding botanist paradox, thinking about learners and how automation and augmented reality is going to kind of think about how they're going to frame their learning. And we think about teaching, how as educators we are going to be slowly automating our processes, getting faster, getting better, working with AI to teach students. And then we're thinking about how we're going to reform our institutions to support all of this moving forward. All right, so I don't think I had a lot of answers for you, but I hope this will help frame some of the conversations moving forward in our talks during these 3 days. And I'm looking very much forward to talking about this and other things with this great group of educators. Just a couple of quick announcements. We have a couple of sponsors, Near Life, Tech, VR. Bobby might be able to explain what they do a little bit more than me. My Hometown Project, Reality Labo, Together Learning are all things that you might want to try and experiment with as far as projects that we can collaborate on. A couple of these I've started myself, and I'm looking for, and our research group is looking for collaborators, both with research and educational initiatives around these. So it's just one opportunity to collaborate. And our next slight announcement, we agreed on this, right, Bobby? Okay, I just want to make double check. So we had our first World Learning Lab symposium in Kyoto of last year. This is our second one this year. And we're growing again, and we're going back to Kyoto again next year tentatively for around this same time at the end of March. We have a new lab there. It's been built over the last couple years, and I think it's a great place for us to experiment with these new technologies. I'll show you a couple of pictures of those. It's called the Future Hub at the Kyoto University of Foreign Studies. But we're not going to stop there, right, Bobby? We want to keep moving forward. So if you would like to consider hosting this event in 2025, maybe Los Baños, perhaps, we would like to start a conversation around that so we can announce it at next year's event. Right? And in the meantime, I'm having a Tomorrow Tourism event at the same lab. So if you'd like to think about these technologies as they relate to the tourism and hospitality industry, I'm going to be hosting a one-day event on September 7th at our lab where we're going to be talking about things like virtual travel, augmented tourism, and other ways to train people in the tourism hospitality industry using immersive technologies. Hope it didn't take too much of your time. Hopefully that helps us frame the conversations for these 3 days. Anything that I've said, anything that I've quoted can be found on my website for later. Please reach out if you have any questions or have any compulsion to collaborate with me or the rest of our research group.